Beat. Okay. You know, it's fine, dude. Just try one more time.
It's not fine.
What?
Dude, I'm awful at this. What are we doing? I'm a 30-year-old man in a parking lot.
It's fine, dude. We can just edit around it and make it look cool. It's all bullshit, man.
No. I think we need some professionals.
Where the hell are we gonna get professionals, man? I mean, I get it. You're not that great, but what?
Follow me.
Yeah, I cannot believe that Tim actually got here at the X Games. Well, yeah, regardless, since we're here, I've been thinking about skateboarding and all the freaking cool shit. So, what better way to freaking celebrate it than talk about the subgenre of skateboarding games?
Skateboarding games seem like a pretty cut and dry subgenre. It can be classified as a sports game, but it's also a subgenre of the vast world of X games. Extreme games, you know, like BMX, motocross, just try and keep up. Usually, skateboarding games put you in control of a character, and your goal is to either race downhill or achieve a high score by pulling off as many tricks as you can, or even better, stringing them together into one epic combo. Like nachos.
Hey! What are you doing? Dude, if you get the nachos stuck together, that's one nacho.
All in all, it's pretty basic, and essentially they all follow this formula to a T. So just because a game has a skateboard item, does not automatically make it a skateboarding game. Sorry, The Simpsons arcade game, and Dead Rising. You just don't count here, even though using a board as a weapon is pretty clutch. Having said that, there are still tons of games to talk about. So why in the hell are there so many skateboarding games? And why was it so popular? Well, before we get to that, let's go back to a more comfortable setting. Whew. This is a lot better. Less people. But yeah, what makes these games so great? Well, to answer that, we gotta go all the way back to the beginning. So yeah, here's a history lesson. The year was 1955. In a small town in Northern California, a commotion was brewing at the local malt shop, and a teenager named Calvin Klein was being chased by a group of ruffians. While running away from the gang, he decided he needed a better form of transportation, and jumped on a wooden board fastened with wheels at the bottom. The sight everyone saw that day was incredible, and a week later, that kid vanished without a trace. Wait, sorry, that's the plot to Back to the Future. God damn it, Wikipedia.
Nowadays, you can walk into a sporting goods store or a drugstore and buy one of these. This is a skateboard.
That's not a skateboard.
Some neighborhood daredevil.
Now this is a skateboard.
Originating in the 1950s, on the shores of California and Hawaii, surfers began to wonder if they could ride the asphalt just like the waves of the ocean. Well, they did just that. These hobbyists would slap on wheels to a board, and they were known as literal asphalt surfers. This slowly grew in popularity, prompting the first official skateboard to come from a company called Roller Derby in 1959. And from there, things just spiraled out of control. By 1963, the first skateboard competition happened in California. In 64, the first skateboard magazine hit the scene. And in 66, the shoe company Vans made it clear that they were a shoe made for skateboarders. By the early 70s, boards were retooled and now came with urethane wheels. Full-blown skate parks were built in 1976, Alan Gelfand invented the Ollie in 1978, and Rodney Mullen adapted it for street skating in 82. And this is what we know as an Ollie today, and it completely changed the sport. Thrasher magazine dropped on the newsstands in 1981, and from the 80s onward, skateboarding was no longer a niche thing. It became the national pastime of nearly every teenager. Whether you were in the USA, Munich, Germany, or the streets of Brazil, kids everywhere were riding around a board with wheels. But where were they off to? Well, in the 80s, they were either going to the nearest park or a movie theater. But let's be honest, they were most certainly heading towards the arcade. And what greeted them there? Well, huge video game juggernaut Atari saw how big the board with wheels was. So, they decided to digitize it. 720 would release to the masses in 1986, and it's considered to be the very first skateboarding game ever to release. Sporting a checkerboard pattern and speakers that resembled a boombox on top, this was definitely a flashy arcade machine. So, what's it like? Well, let me answer that by asking another question very enthusiastically. This is the first skateboard game? This is sick as fuck. Atari wasn't messing around here. This game is sublime for the time. And hell, today, it's pretty nifty. It has an isometric view, movement is basic, you aren't going to be pulling off any incredible tricks in the air, but you have an open city to traverse, skate parks to buy yourself into, competitions to enter for cash prizes, and you can upgrade your equipment like your shoes and board. This was extremely innovative for any game at the time, let alone the first skateboard game. I mean vert, downhill jams, and street skating areas. This perfectly captures all the facets of skateboarding. This is literally a game I recommend playing even to this day. Wow, with a game like that, I mean, seriously, they just laid out the freaking perfect groundwork for every future game. I mean, the only way is up, right? No, not exactly. I mean, yes, eventually, but not yet. 720 worked so well because of how advanced arcade machines were, and the developers knowing exactly what to do with them. But what about the home market? I mean, thankfully 720 was eventually ported to a bunch of consoles at the time, but not immediately. So, what was the first console original skateboard game? Well, that would be 1987's Skateboarding for the Atari 2600. Do I really need to say it? I mean, the 2600 was extremely primitive. And this game reflects that. You ride around and try to hit every ramp. That's it. Look, I didn't grow up around this era, so I can't really speak for people who grew up with it. But it feels very much like a by-the-numbers game and really isn't worth your time now. I mean, developers just probably went, what do skateboarders do? They go off ramps. That's the whole goal. Done. It's just point-based. And you get the points by just hitting the ramps, not actually doing, tricks. Well, amazingly, this got a sequel for the 7800, and it's called Super Skateboarding. And you ride around in a building and transfer between floors using pipes. Wait, why the hell are they skating indoors through apartment? I don't. Whatever. Moving on. The next huge game in the genre is California Games. And finally, we got an interesting one here. Not just because it's a skateboarding game, but it's a collection of all the big summer X games into one package. The game is made up of a bunch of point-based minigames, which include a surfing game, rollerblading, BMX, and of course, a skateboarding half-pipe score attack. You get a time limit, and your goal is to pull off as many tricks as possible. That is if you understand the controls. I mean, this is, the old days, so read the damn manual. Regardless, California Games is a very notable game, because while 720 was eventually ported to many systems, California Games was released to every platform known to man in 1987. I'm talking Apple II, all the way to the Sega Genesis into the early 90s. Saying it sold well would be an understatement. And a cool tidbit is when the game got a sequel, appropriately titled California Games 2, it had a whole new array of extreme sports games to choose from, like hand gliding and snowboarding. But the only sport to make its way back from the original was skateboarding. Yeah, the demand was there. So much so that this was no longer a sport to some people. It was a way of life. People would eat, drink, and sleep skateboarding. And no other title out there reflected this even better than 1987's Skate or Die. And I mean just the title, because as far as gameplay goes, this is a very mediocre game. Once again, you got a score-based time attack mode on a half-pipe. Alright, how high can you go on the half-pipe? Kinda lame, but okay. A downhill skate course with a bunch of obstacles you barely have any time to react to. Yeah, that was tedious and repetitious. I mean, they expect you to memorize this by playing it over and over and over again. I mean, oh yeah, it's got some replay value. That's not the right way to do it. A neighborhood downhill jam with obstacles. Did I mention tedious? And a bowl to drop into and joust with another player. Cool concept, but meh execution. Look, don't get me wrong. Back in the 80s, this would be a solid game for a kid. But for today, and looking back, this just screams of archaic design. You were better off waiting until '89 and getting the NES port of 720. And even that was not such a great port. So whatever, moving on. 1990, we got Skate or Die 2. Oh no, please don't be more of the same. What the hell is this? This is a side-scrolling shooter with the open nature of a River City Ransom game. You ride around with a paintball gun, and you have to get to the end of each level without dying. Well, I guess they took the name even more at face value here. This seems like it shouldn't count, but on top of the adventure mode, you also get a double trouble half pipe to pull off some pretty sweet tricks, at least for the time. Wait a minute, did I just explode? Are those jibbing effects? Alright, this game is automatically awesome. I mean, yes, it's still a meh NES game, but it's far superior to the first entry on the fun scale. Especially when you see that. Damn. Now leaving the NES era, what about the next console generation? You know, Genesis and Super Nintendo. Well, here's where things get kind of odd because despite the more power of the next generation consoles, we didn't see many original games in the genre here. As mentioned before, some ports, nothing really new. I mean, we did get a new Skate or Die, oh god, this time on the Game Boy called Bad and Red in 1990, which is a cool to note as the first handheld offering, but I don't think I should really What the hell is this? Oh my god! What is happening here? Okay, never mind, we're talking about this. Once again, leaning more into the or die aspect of its namesake, the game is once again a side-scroller, but this time you're ollieing over death pits, defeating bosses and skating half-pipes to avoid drills trying to gore you. Also, the downhill jams, they have a bunch of obstacles, and enemies like a gyrocopter trying to crane game you, a giant bird, and spiked walls trying to close in on you to kill you. This is nuts. How in the hell did a Game Boy game this gnarly ship out to stores? Now, sadly, it didn't do so hot. It's actually a decent game, but it got bad scores because this is one tough son of a bitch. This game is not user-friendly, and it really wants you to die. But you know what? In hindsight, this is metal as hell. Now, this has to be the last one, right? Nope. We got yet another game on the Game Boy. We're now going back to the more kid-friendly skate aspect. It's even sponsored by Santa Cruz Skateboards. Neat. Once again, half-pipe game mode, and this time a half-pipe race, very much like in California Games too. After the insanity of Bad and Red, it makes sense that they would release a more skate-focused game. Pretty basic, but for the Game Boy, this is alright. But personally, I prefer Bad and Red. I mean, I'm not any good at it, but just for its batshit craziness alone, yeah, this gets a thumbs up in my eyes. Huh, I did not expect to talk about the Skate or Die series that much, and I didn't even know it was a series. I mean, I thought it was only just the one game on the NES. And I'm kind of glad I explored them because holy crap, I mean, if you're interested, I'd recommend playing them. I mean, they even have a freaking Ski or Die game. I mean, that's how big the series was, or at least, you know, popular enough to get 4 games. That's kind of cool. But yeah, regardless, we're in the 90s now. And in the 90s, where are we going to go here? I mean, the vert-style gameplay was just okay, and the side-scrolling shooter gameplay doesn't really fit, you know, skateboarding. So yeah, what is the future? Well, in my opinion, out of all these gameplay styles, I think the most, you know, fun gameplay style was the downhill jam. And with the top-down or the isometric view, I mean, it was good, but it definitely lacked the speed of what it felt like bombing a hill. But you know what did kind of feel like that? Was the third-person camera view of the half-pipe race in California Games 2. So why don't we just take that and put it into a 3D engine? So, rip off Road Rash. Introducing 1995's ESPN Extreme Games. Also known as One Extreme when the ESPN license expired. Yeah, this is pretty much Road Rash, but on X Games equipment. Rollerblades, skateboard, BMX, even street luge. Cross the finish line in record time and don't eat the pavement while doing so. And, of course, your opponents aren't afraid of seeing your blood, so make sure you fight back any way you can. This is honestly an alright game. I mean, it's way better with friends. So yeah, what's next? How about a sequel to Extreme? The same gameplay, only this time you can no longer race with opponents on different equipment. Every level is restricted to either skateboarding, riding a bike, rollerblading, and the new event will replacing street luge, snowboarding. Well, that's kind of a bummer, but I mean the series is doing pretty well. So what about the third game? It's gotta be good. In 1999, we got 3 Extreme. Well, we are back to everybody can be on different equipment, but only 3 modes of transportation this time. So snowboarding and street luge, you're out. There's a little more focus on tricks now, but once again, race to the finish and that's it. It's pretty much just get down there as fast as you can and get as many points as possible. This kind of blows. I mean, it's okay, but the developers are really phoning it in here. Should have known it was you guys again. Yeah, this is not scratching that skateboarding itch anymore. Well, what else was there? Looks like we took a wrong turn back in '97 because the future of skateboarding games was taking shape. It just wasn't at home. It was back in the arcade. Look at this thing. Look at it. From the company that brought you the coolest dude in the 90s, Sonic the Hedgehog, Sega decided to go all out and build an arcade machine with a skateboard as the controller. Top Skater dropped in '97, and thankfully, I've actually played this game in the arcade. If this looks ridiculous, I can attest that it really is. But it's so damn cool to play. This is another downhill jam style game, but instead of pure racing, the player is motivated to hit as many ramps, go up every pipe, and grind as many rails as they can to achieve the best possible score. The graphics are what you expect from a Model 2 hardware game, colorful and polygonal, which gives off that sweet 90s Sega Saturn look. And to top it off, you get a bitchin' soundtrack from the punk band Pennywise. This is freaking sweet, and I cannot recommend this game enough. And if for some weird reason that still doesn't entice you, I mean, come on. The creator of this game, Kenji Kano, went on to create Crazy Taxi. If that isn't enough to persuade you to go track down a machine right now, I don't know what will. But yeah, taking a step back, what makes this game a milestone in the genre, besides the crazy controller? Well, it's the bigger focus on tricks. In other games, tricks were just seen as an extra way to get points, just simple spins and board flips. Here, tricks were more defined, and there was more of an emphasis on the bigger the trick, the bigger the score the player would get. But yeah, let's be realistic. Now that I'm done hyping it up, it's going to be really tough to track down this arcade machine. I mean, finding an arcade nowadays isn't easy as it used to be. And finding a specific machine is like looking for a syringe in the ocean. It's a terrible analogy. But they are out there. But yeah, regardless, was this ever ported to the home? Sadly, no. But we at least did get something similar. In '98, we got Street Skater for the PS1. Outside of emulating Top Skater, Street Skater is practically the same style of game, just thankfully on a much more common console. No special controller. You just take control of your skater and you go through a linear course and try to get the highest possible score. The speed feels a bit more subdued than Top Skater, but you know what? I think it still slaps, with its energetic announcer and a pretty varied punk soundtrack. It captures the classic 90s arcade experience pretty well. But ultimately, do I recommend this game? To be honest, this game is a bit rough around the edges, and hit detection is a bit wonky. You only have 3 controls: speed up, slow down, and ollie. Tricks happen automatically off jumps. It's pretty straightforward, and bare bones. But it's still somewhat fun, at least for a quick okay, no? Okay, hold on. Okay, I mean, it's not, I can't do it, hold on. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Stop hitting the wall. Get on the rail. Get on the rail. Get on the goddamn rail. How is that not enough points? On second thought, this is much more trouble than it's worth. It's also very short, only 3 stages, and no, I can't recommend this. But hey, this is more like it, at least, score-based, fast-paced mayhem. This is what the genre needed. Oh wait, what the hell is this? A bonus stage. There is no finish line, just a time limit. Wait, this is just the half-pipe modes of yesteryear. But it being in full 3D makes it less tedious. I mean, again, this game does blow. But this isn't bad. I like this. God, if only Top Skater had something like this. This would be the show. What is this? Secret event? Oh my god, it's the same thing. But no, you have a full skate park in front of you. No finish line, just you and the timer? Oh no. I don't like this. I love this. This is fun. This is great. No, this is the future. This is what I'm talking about.
The raw magic, Tony, failing, faintly, and finally breaking through the unbreakable barrier.
Going, get him going, pushing it up. Everybody picture it, here we go. Feel it. Are you kidding me?
This was an atom bomb in the world of sports, not just skateboarding. After June 27, 1999, everybody knew the name Tony Hawk. He legitimized the world of skateboarding by turning it into a worldwide phenomenon. And on September 29th of the same year, this was solidified even further. Tony Hawk Pro Skater changed the subgenre completely, taking everything that came before, the freedom of 720, the emphasis on speed and tricks like Top Skater, having a varied soundtrack like Street Skater, and the grunge tone of the Skater Die series. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 perfected the formula of trick-based skateboarding. You, the player, are given 2 minutes to traverse a stage, with a laundry list of goals to finish, whether it be achieve a high score, collecting the letters of the word skate, collecting a hard-to-get secret tape, or even stage-specific challenges. The player is given the freedom to do it however they want, and at the end of each run, there was no game over. You could just redo it over and over again. So, the replay value? Yeah, it was there. 10 skaters to choose from, and 2 skaters to unlock. 9 stages, with 3 of them being contest stages, where the best score of 2 out of 3 runs moves you forward to the next stage. A bunch of secret areas waiting to be discovered, and a full list of iconic tricks. A special meter that, once filled, allowed you to pull off, you guessed it, special tricks worth far more points. And 3 multiplayer modes, which have become standard even in other non-skateboarding games. Horse, essentially monkey see, monkey do. Trick attack, highest score wins. And graffiti. To you kids out there, think Splatoon, but you paint parts of the skate park by doing a trick or grinding on them. Not to mention, one of the easiest control schemes of any sports game, period. You move around with the D-pad. X speeds you up, and ollies. Triangle was for grinds, square was for flips, and circle was for grabs. This is standard now, because it truly was easy to learn within seconds. Didn't matter your age, this control scheme made it accessible to everyone. And with that level of accessibility, to say this game was a massive success is an understatement. Skateboarding had infected everything like movies from Cleaning the Cube and Thrashin', and television with MTV and ESPN. But this was the first time that everybody, and I mean everybody, went out of their way to pick up a copy of this game. Seriously, this was a system seller, and skaters would buy game consoles just to play this game. Whether you owned a PS1, an N64, or even an N-Gage, you had the chance of stepping into the shoes of the Birdman himself. And damn, could this mother fly. Part 1 was in the can, and developer Neversoft was definitely going to follow this up with a sequel, right? Well, duh. We all know the answer there. But yeah, before we get to this, I do want to talk about this time period between Pro Skater 1 and 2, because out of nowhere, we got a glut of skating games. Every developer and big name company saw the money printer working overtime, and they wanted in on this action. We all know Pro Skater 1 prevailed, but if any of these other games did any better, it could have changed the tides of history. So, who was the first company to try and take on Tony Hawk? Well, fitting enough, it was another huge name in the skateboarding scene. Dropping 2 months after THPS 1, Thrasher Presents Skate and Destroy hit the street. And yeah, this is definitely not a ripoff. Instead, the controls feel much more sim-like than arcadey. And well, in the 90s, that kind of means that they were pretty stiff. So in turn, it has a bit of a learning curve. You skate around a level trying to achieve a high score by pulling off as many tricks as you can. You can gain sponsors along the way and alter your character's clothes. Feels much more empty than Pro Skater, but with the controls, it feels kind of rewarding once you get the hang of it. It lacks a punk soundtrack, but instead, we are given a pretty solid rap and hip-hop one. I mean, A Tribe Called Quest and the Sugar Hill Gang. Yeah, these are some damn good beats. But besides the funky controls and soundtrack, what made this game different, let alone worth a purchase? Well, if you had friends to play with, the game included 7 different multiplayer modes. Because I mean, hey, who doesn't like variety? But if that wasn't enough, Thrasher included one last gameplay element that set it apart from the rest of the pack. And it was definitely something that screamed punk skater. At the end of each run, or on the 10-second mark, you would hear a distant voice calling out to you, and it would switch to a second-person style view. Yes, second person, the elusive and rare viewpoint. So how does that work? Well, while still retaining control of your character, you would now be forced to look through the eyes of a police officer, a street mugger, or even a police dog trying to chase you down. And in this view, your last goal is to escape before they catch you or exit the level. Yes, this can feel a little bit disorienting, but I'm sorry, serious bonus points here, because even though it's a brief segment of the game, it perfectly encapsulates the feeling of being chased off as a teenager when you're doing something you know you shouldn't be doing. Good job, Rockstar. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention, this game was made by Rockstar. I mean, seriously, they don't make bad games. And no wonder they keep re-releasing them. Well, there you go. Thrasher definitely tried to take on Tony Hawk, but yeah, no dice. But at least this game, has gone down as a cult hit. People love this game still. But you know what? Our next game doesn't have the same, luck, because it still lives in obscurity. and to be honest, it really shouldn't. But yeah, next game is the sequel to Street Skater, Street Skater 2. Like I said before, don't play the original. It kind of sucks. Instead, find a way to play the sequel, because this is far more like Top Skater. On top of the downhill challenges being much more lax on time, there are now dedicated skate parks. No finish line, just you and the score attack timer. They also improved the controls with dedicated buttons and combinations similar to Tony Hawk 1. Improved graphics, a better sense of speed than before, and once again, a solid soundtrack. It's a shame no one talks about this game because it's quite good. Another solid skating game, and different enough from Pro Skater to scratch a different itch. This is a pretty cool time for skating fans. You can get different experiences through multiple titles. Well, that all changed with the next game. We are in rip-off territory. Now, I do have a soft spot for this game because I did grow up with it, but yeah, this ain't no replacement. So yeah, let's get to Grind Session. With a title like that, you'd think this game is all about grinding rails, but nah, pretty much beat-for-beat imitation of Tony Hawk 1, with less to do. The controls are pretty much lifted directly from Pro Skater. You can choose from 4 pre-made custom skaters, or choose from a list of 6 pro skaters, plus some hidden ones. 9 levels to skate across, plus a training stage, a decent list of tricks to pull off, and I guess its biggest lame claim to fame is that instead of 2-minute heats, like in Pro Skater, you were given instead only 90 seconds. Now that sounds unfair, but they mitigate this by adding a gap system that rewards the player with extra time by doing tricks on certain parts of the course. I mean, it's kind of cool, but definitely not something that put it over Pro Skater 1. But hey, at least it has a decent soundtrack that was both punk and hip-hop. And overall a much more underground style vibe compared to Tony Hawk. Best way I could put it is THPS felt like you were skating at a local skate park, whereas Grind Session felt like you were illegally skating under a bridge in New York City. Overall it does the job, and if you were like me who played part 1 after the fact, it's a decent skating game. But it pales in comparison to the real deal. Speaking of which, now is the time you've all been waiting for. Because in September 2000, we got MTV Sports Skateboarding featuring Andy McDonald. Wait, what? Oh god, this came out the same week? Alright, you know, usually I'd say this is terrible timing, but no. This is easily the worst of the bunch. So screw this game. Let's talk about one of the GOATs here. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. If you thought part 1 was big, then you ain't seen nothing yet. Far more tricks, more challenges, ability to upgrade individual skater stats, the introduction of manuals, which doesn't sound like much until you use them to chain together some long-ass combos, a bunch of new secret characters, a new creative skater mode, new levels, a full-blown creative park mode, an extended cheat codes menu, and easily one of the most incredible soundtracks ever to grace a video game ever. Punk, ska, rock, grunge, hip-hop, they were all represented here, and each of these songs are as iconic as the game itself. This was my childhood, and I am glad that I can beat this game to this day in one sitting just for a quick thrill. I'm not saying it's an easy game, it's got some difficulty to it, but the replay factor is high, and I've happily deleted my saves in the past just to beat it all over again. This is arcade skating perfection, and things could only get better in the horizon. Every other skating series fell by the wayside. THPS was top dog, and it would stay that way for nearly a decade. The following years we got Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3, the game that introduced the revert system. If you don't know, a revert is essentially spinning your board 180 degrees while on the ground. Well, in THPS 3, after landing a trick on the vert, you can revert, allowing that trick to become part of an even longer combo, and just chaining them on top of that with manuals, it just got ridiculous. Just an additional link to the chain of possible combos. Also, another great soundtrack and easily some of the best level design of the series. Did I call the last one perfect? No. This one is the perfect entry and debatably the best of the bunch. And if you're still not convinced, I mean, you can play as Darth Maul and Wolverine. Need I say more? Next up was Pro Skater 4. So what could they add here? No longer were you restricted to 2-minute heats. You could now move around the levels at your own pace and take on all the challenges individually. The timer would come back, but only for each specific challenge. A great shakeup to the formula, but it felt a bit safe. It was definitely a harbinger of what was to come. By the early 2000s, kids all over the world would look up to the greats and want to follow in their footsteps. But like any other sport, this required dedication and raw skill. It seemed impossible to become one of the pros. Well, screw all that, because we got the next best thing. Tony Hawk's Underground. Every game before did not really have a story. It was just, here's a board, now go and try clear every level. But in Thug, you were now, well, you. You would create a skater, and you would start your rise from a novice neighborhood skater to the next big name at the X Games. Along the way, you would get into tons of trouble, make some enemies along the way, and befriend some of the greats. This open world role-playing style was just what the series needed, and this definitely helped immerse the player deeper into the world of skating. Once again, the perfect arcade control style was here, but this time you could do something that the series has been needing since the beginning. You could finally get off your board and run around and climb your surroundings. The freedom here was at an all-time high, and in the era of Grand Theft Auto games, this is a necessary game mechanic to push it into that current generation of gaming. So, how do you follow up a masterpiece? With embracing the ridiculousness, of course. Around the same time the skateboarding world is exploding, something else is exploding in the background. From the minds of Jeff Tremaine, Johnny Knoxville, and the guy that brought you Being John Malkovich, some of the best music videos ever made, and legitimized skateboarding videos, came the idea of getting together an ensemble of psychos doing insane stunts and pranks for the amusement of every juvenile person alive. The age of jackass was amongst us, and Tony Hawk's Underground 2 was infected by this trend. A direct story follow-up to the original game, only this time your skater was being forced into a competition. A worldwide destruction tour led by Bam Margera and Tony Hawk, with only one goal: to do crazy shit all around the globe. Same gameplay as before, a new ripping soundtrack, and a character roster that came straight out of an asylum. It was crude, tasteless, and borderline amusing as all hell. For some it might have been a bit too much. It definitely leaned into the absurd, but nobody in their right mind would say this is a bad game. This is definitely a highlight of the series. And we're not done yet. In 2005, Neversoft dished out American Wasteland, an interconnected open-world skating game. In 2006, we got Project 8, a true open-world game without loading tunnels. And finally, Proving Ground, a somewhat return to the classic style by 2007. All in all, the series did begin to stagnate here in the end, but Neversoft still delivered a fun experience one after the other. Even with their shortcomings, the series was still liked by audiences, and was making Activision a good amount of money. So why in blue perfect hell would Activision think that giving the reins to this freaking multi-million-dollar franchise to a novice studio like Robomoto be a good idea? Well, it wasn't necessarily Activision's fault, which is kind of a shock to me, but no. Instead, this was kind of Neversoft's decision. Why in the hell would they walk away from Tony Hawk? Oh, that's why. Yep, with Guitar Hero becoming an even bigger success than Tony Hawk, it made sense that Neversoft passed the buck. But why the hell did it have to be Robomoto? Completely sidestepping the absolute failures of Tony Hawk Ride and Shred, the god-awful motion control games that required you to have a specific... These games sucked. No, Robomoto gave us the most putrid remaster ever. I have talked about this game before, so I'll be brief. Terrible graphics, pathetic amount of content, some of which is behind a paywall, floaty controls, and dog shit hit detection. This should have been the ace in the hole to kill the franchise once and for all. But no, Robomoto was not done. On September 29, 2015, because Activision's license of the Tony Hawk name would expire by the end of the year, we got Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5. Instead of fixing what was broken, they doubled down on every single aspect that made HD horrible. Controls were busted, glitches made the game unplayable, the game graphics were laughably bad for even last-gen's consoles, boring challenges, horrible level design, and above all else, the game wasn't even on the disc. Seriously, if you did not have internet access, you could not download the day one patch, which was essentially the whole game outside of the tutorial. Sadly, a lot of games nowadays do that, but at least they give you the common courtesy to tell you on the box. Not here though. Part 5 was borderline a huge grift. They made it just to make money, and it was the tombstone of the franchise. This was a huge kick in the nuts for gamers everywhere, and a huge middle finger to skaters on top of that. But thankfully, while Tony Hawk was spiraling out of control, back in 2007, we did get a new hope, and the new series that definitely delivered on the gameplay. And it came from, of all places, Activision's bitter rival, EA. That's, of course, the Skate series. And you know what? It's pretty damn good. By this point, if you wanted arcadey fun, you stuck with Tony Hawk. But if you wanted an interesting yet intuitive way to control your skater on screen, Skate had you covered. Utilizing a new flick it system, the player would control all the character's actions through the analog control movements. It sounds like it would control weird, and it does at first. But once you get the hang of it, it began to feel like a skateboarding sim of sorts. It seemed like a good game for serious gamers to sink their teeth into, but once you bail and your character's at the mercy of the ragdoll effects, oh yeah, this game became fun for everyone. Ultimately, easy to learn but tough to master was the vibe everyone got, and gamers ate it up, so much so that it was a bit of a hit. And when EA smells a hit, you better believe there's going to be a sequel to follow it up. Skate 2. Developer Black Box built on what made the original so good and essentially made everything more tight, while also giving the player a little more to do, as well as the ability to get off their board, making it far easier to set up for tricks or challenges. The world was far bigger than before, and the ragdoll effects were even further refined to really make each crash have more weight to them, which made them even more fun. They even installed a more fleshed out Hall of Meat system, with challenges that encourage you even further to crack your shin bone in half. Not to mention, a new video editor mode so that you can make your own skate videos, and the new Create a Spot mode, where you could edit the world around you to include even more ramps and rails than before. The world was yours to shred across, and with Skate 2, the series in some aspects kind of peaked here. Now don't get me wrong, the second sequel is a great game, and by no means should anyone be deciding between the two. Get both. But the gameplay does feel a little bit different here. Like I just said, this game is far easier. Now, you can thankfully adjust this with the difficulty setting, making it easier to pull off tricks, or make the game feel more sim-like, but compared to the previous entries, things are more user-friendly. Skate 2's controls felt polished, and any mistake was on you, while 3 is far more forgiving, which is fine, but it can also become a problem when the auto-targeting magnetizes you to a rail that you didn't really want to go onto, makes you do a trick you didn't really want to do. It can be a little funky. Either way, the easier control style is preferred in some people's eyes, so it's debatable. But you know what isn't preferred? Is replacing the vast seamless open world of 2 with a world map consisting of 3 separate areas. Maybe all areas combined are actually bigger than Part 2's map, but because they aren't connected, Skate 3 definitely feels smaller than previous entries. I mean, come on, you gotta go bigger with the sequel, not take a step back. Another thing, the grungy muted color of the first 2 was now more colorful and poppy. It was like transitioning from the 90s videotape scene to the newer 2000s HD era. Now, while most of those points are debatable, of which is better, there are some things that Skate 3 definitively does better. First up, the variety of things to do. I mean, there are so many different challenges in this game, it's ridiculous. It is chock full of single-player content. The Hall of Meat system is back and feels more insane than before thanks to them including an X-ray view of your skeleton as you swallow the road, and even a whole new momentum mechanic, which is necessary to elongate your skater's suffering. But for sure, the thing that Skate 3 has head and shoulders over Skate 2 is its skate park editor. Being able to make your own sick course or download other people's courses online is definitely a highlight, especially because the servers are still up. At least at the time of making this video, people are still uploading courses. That is pretty much endless content here, until EA shuts the servers down. But for now, this is great. In fact, Skate 3 leaned very heavily into the online aspect, for better or worse. I mean, it isn't necessarily a bad thing right now because again, they're still up. If you want to board with your friends, you still can. But nowadays, the normal multiplayer servers, which I need to reiterate, are still up, do feel dead. Oh, and for you split-screen multiplayer aficionados, yeah, it's here, but it's locked behind paid DLC. Damn it, you were doing so well, EA. And then you present us the nice rails and the nuts. But yeah, despite all that, Skate 3 is still a great game to play, and it's easily still one of the best skateboard games, bar none. Mainly due to the amount of content packed in here. Yes, it does feel like it lost some of its identity along the way. But don't get it twisted, there is a reason why people still argue to this day whether 2 or 3 is the better game. So yeah, looking back, skating games were freaking huge. And I don't mean just, like selling a bunch of games, but these were system sellers. Tony Hawk was freaking pushing PS1s and PS2s out the door, and even, I'm pretty sure the Skate series was freaking, selling a couple PS3 units every now and then. So yeah, skating games were big. The subgenre was big. The keyword there is was. What about nowadays? I mean, there are still some games out there, like Session Skate Sim, Skater XL, and of course the supposed free-to-play Skate 4. But the subgenre definitely peaked in the 2000s. Since then we've gotten more interesting titles, but nothing that got the mass market by the balls like Tony Hawk or Skate did. So hopefully the future looks bright. But for now, the subgenre has hit a bit of a lull here. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is just the ray of sunshine I was hoping for. Releasing as I edit this video, I couldn't help but drop everything and play this love letter to the Jet Set Radio series. This is essentially the third game now. Same style of cel-shaded graphics, same simple yet fast-paced gameplay, and an incredibly funky soundtrack including the man himself, Hideki Naganuma, a prominent artist from the original games. Now some of you may be thinking, why don't you just talk about the original games? I mean, just keep skating around them, why don't you just talk about them? Well, those are strictly rollerblading, and this is a skateboarding video. So thankfully in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, you can do both, as well as BMX. No matter what equipment you use, you can shred across multiple vast open areas and pull off some amazing, crazy-ass tricks. The main goal of this game is to tag up each map with spray paint, out-trick rival gang members, and literally fight the man. There is a decent plot holding all this together, but the aesthetic and gameplay is what shines here. Developer Team Reptile knocked it out of the freaking park here. I cannot recommend this game enough, especially if you're a fan of Jet Set Radio, or just skateboarding, skating, or BMX games in general. This is a love letter to all X games. I love it, and it's literally one of my favorites of 2023. And with that, the timeline is done, at least up to this point. And yeah, now I want to deviate a little bit and talk about some more noteworthy games, not good or bad, but unconventional games, you know, whether they were innovative or gimmicky or, you know, had some kind of cool quirk to them. So yeah, where do we start? Well, let's head back to the early 90s, or I mean 2000s. The arcade was still barely kicking and hadn't yet changed into a huge mobile phone game gallery. Here, we will find yet another skating arcade game. Oh yeah, you thought Sega was done after Top Skater. Nope. Instead, in 2003, the arcades were graced with Ollie King, a spiritual sequel to the previously mentioned title, and a bit of a swan song for Smilebit, the same developers of Jet Set Radio. Now sadly, I didn't get to enjoy this game in the arcade, or come to think of it, maybe I did. For all I know, I've never even played Top Skater before this video, and Ollie King was the one I actually played back then. It has been over a decade, so I can't be too sure, but regardless, same rules apply here. The game is controlled with the skateboard-like controller. Your goal is to get to the bottom of each stage while pulling off some sick moves. The bump in graphics is a welcome upgrade, and so is the soundtrack, which will sound familiar to any of you Jet Set fanboys. I cannot stress it enough, if you find either of these out in the wild at an arcade, you gotta give it a try. It's definitely worth your quarters, or let's be honest, in today's world, the $3 worth of credits to play it. If not for the fun, at least for the sake of saying that you played a game with a weird skateboard controller. Speaking of which, No, we are not talking about Shredder Ride. Those, I mean, I'm not spending money on that freaking hunk of plastic. Those controls do not work. Content aside, Shred and Ride's controls are dog shit. They don't work. It's not worth my time. It's not worth your time. We're not talking about it. No. Instead, I want to talk about something weirder. But hey, the controls at least work. And that's Yanya Caballista, City Skater. How does this satisfy the requirement of a weird skateboard controller? Well, if you look at the back here, this game shipped with a fingerboard that they expected you to put over your PS2 thumbsticks. And you know what? The game is easy to get. The fingerboard, not so much. I mean, trying to even get a picture of the bottom of this fingerboard took me way longer than it should have. I mean, nobody has this weird-ass game documented enough to even show it. So, shout out to this eBayer for going above and beyond for showing the bottom of the actual damn thing. Regardless, why does it even matter anyways? Well, because in this game I wanted to be a little authentic. So, I just made this contraption. Well, contraption. I just taped a freaking fingerboard to a PS2 controller. So yeah, let's try it out. If you thought the Skate series controlled weird, well, you aren't wrong. But this is like Twinkie Wiener sandwich levels of weird. Best thing I could compare it to is someone looked at Ape Escape and thought, this could be a skateboarding game. They were definitely hammered. You use both analog sticks, but with the controller on its side. If you're thinking it's like Touch Grind, yeah, some of you know what I'm talking about, that fingerboard game for early iPhones. Well, sadly it's nothing like that genuinely good time waster. Instead, Yanya's fun arcadey tone tries to lure you in, but these controls are just too odd. I did get the hang of them, but the novelty wore off immediately. And this is because you are left with a pretty minimal experience. 5 different stages, collectathon style gameplay, you go around pulling off tricks to kill these little gawu, and at the end of each stage you get a boss fight. Yeah, this doesn't really feel like your typical skating game. I mean, you get a ramp mode, but no. This barely counts for the subgenre, and it really isn't worthwhile. I mean, it isn't horrible, but the gimmick here does not stick the landing. Alright, fine. Motion controls and weird gimmicks was not the future. What else could developers do to try to cash in on the skateboarding craze? Well, how about having a crazy character roster? The Tony Hawk games were well known for their amazing secret unlockable characters. I mean, being able to play as Spider-Man, Jango Fett, or even Jack Black was a treat when you unlocked them. Or, let's be honest, for most of you, when you put the code in. It's just cool as hell to see his characters grind around the same rails as the pros. Well, veteran developer Konami took this to heart and went a little off the deep end in their own foray into the genre with Evolution Skateboarding. This game dropped in 2002, and yeah, it kinda sucked. I mean, it was another blatant ripoff of Tony Hawk, so it can't be that bad, but thanks to the floaty movement, some notable control delay, and some just not intuitive controls, the game was a huge misfire. But since Konami has a huge rogues gallery of characters at their disposal, they decided to throw in some interesting notable faces in there. First up, Frogger from arcade notoriety, a Belmont from the Castlevania series, not really sure which one it's supposed to be here, but hey, they're here as Vampire Killer. And last but certainly not least, Solid Snake. This was the big one here. At the time, the Metal Gear Solid series was one of the biggest franchises of the PS2 era. It was odd for sure, but for some reason, this felt right. They even threw in Raiden for good measure, a few guards, and even a stage set in Big Shell, the main setting of MGS2. Once again, the controls were not good, but that does not take away from how kooky this was. I mean, seeing old David here carve up the facility was definitely the needed downtime he deserved. And Konami thought this too by extending his vacation. Because even though Evolution Skateboarding face planted hard, the re-release of Metal Gear Solid 2, known as Substance, included a bonus skateboard mode, including the Big Shell stage along with Snake and Raiden. Now sadly, this is not included in all versions of this game. HD Collection, even the original Xbox version, didn't get it. But if you have an NTSC or PAL PS2, then you're all set. Just for the novelty alone, this is worth checking out. Alright, what else is there to mention? Because we can be here all day. Any other games of note? There is the GameCube exclusive, Go-Go Hypergrind, that is notable for having the animation studio that did Ren and Stimpy work on it. But to be honest, this game is also pretty bad. I mean, yes, the animation is pretty nice to look at and it has its moments of humor, but the stiff basic gameplay definitely ruins the fun. How about Simpsons Skateboarding? Is that a good game? Of course not. That game is terrible. I mean, everybody freaking knows it's a horrible game. I mean, the Simpsons name alone didn't help it sell well. Terrible controls, laughable game mechanics makes this easily the worst of the bunch. I mean, seriously, who the hell thought this was worthy of the Simpsons license? Granted, this was developed around the time the TV show had its disastrous season 11 and season 12. So you know what? This checks out. No, instead I want to end this segment by talking about, well, the Simpsons parent company. Shh. No, I mean their real parent company. No, I mean their real parent company.
Perfection.
Yep, the House of Mouse. Because outside of having their hands in everything these days, back then they too strapped on a helmet and hit the local skate park. Not once or twice, but 3 separate times. So, let's check out how they did. If you're a kid of the 90s, then you surely grew up with the all-time classic, A Goofy Movie. And you most certainly are aware of the follow-up, an extremely goofy movie. You know, that direct-to-video 2000 movie with Goofy going back to college and competing at the literal X Games. Did I mention skateboarding was huge around this time? Well, what many of you don't remember is that we got a follow-up to even that. But this time, on the PC, 2001's Disney's Extremely Goofy Skateboarding. And this is a promotion of sorts, because back in those days you can get a full PC game in a specially marked box of cereal. Bordering on shovelware, Goofy Skateboarding tasks the player to skate around 12 stages and achieve a few goals each. You can play as either Max or Goofy, and the controls are decent enough. I mean, nowadays, yes, this game is nothing to write home about, but imagine you're 8 years old and you got this free in a box of Purdue dinosaur chicken nuggets. Yeah, this is a treat. Ain't nothing wrong with a free promotional game, so yeah, if you're a fan of Goof Troop or anything goofy, this is an interesting oddity. I mean, they even have the voices of Goofy and Max from the movies, so even for a budget title, they went all out. Wait a minute. Jack Wall was the composer. Why do I know that name? Okay, hindsight is 2020, but I'm going to double down on my previously unfinished statement. For a budget title, they went all out here. So, what was next? Disney insisted they wanted more of that asphalt. But sadly, with their next game, they got a face full of gravel instead. Disney Sports Skateboarding dropped in 2002, and boy did it drop hard on the pavement. Aesthetically, it's alright. I mean, look at this menu. It looks like it's lifted straight out of a DDR game. And the game looks... okay, this looks pretty bad. I am playing this on the GameCube, and this looks like an AI upscaled PS1 game. Why is it so blocky? And this frame rate is terrible for a supposed fast-paced skating game. Which brings me to the gameplay. Well, levels seem to follow the downhill jam level design, or at least some of them do. Yeah, there's a ramp, but oh my god. Yeah, this basic as hell control scheme and borderline tedious level goals are enough to make anyone reach for Konami's other offering, Evolution Skateboarding. I mean, look, I get it. This is a game for kids, but even kids would get bored of this extremely quickly. This is crap. Well, thankfully every reviewer thought so too, and the game flopped. Moving forward from that disaster, Disney scrambled, and thankfully they did the smartest thing possible. They threw money at the problem, and hey, that fixed it. They went straight to the source of this subgenre, Activision, and they did not ask them to make a game for them. No, instead they essentially bought the rights to the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 engine and gave it to developer Toys for Bob, and also free reign to make the most extreme kids game possible. And what we got was, no joke, one of the best skateboarding games ever made. Yes, this game is for kids, but come on, Disney is for everyone to enjoy. And the quality shined here. Gameplay-wise, we're all set. Mechanically, this is Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4, so this is automatically fun. But throw in some elaborate yet fun challenges, a character roster with beloved characters from Toy Story, Tarzan, even The Lion King. Wait, you can bust tricks as Rafiki? Well, I'm sold. You can also play as some human characters, some kids who won a contest to be featured in the game, but also at the time contemporary inclusions like Little Romeo. If you don't know who that is, that's okay. But yeah, on top of that, some amazingly designed levels set in all three Disney worlds. And what you get here is a game that can still be enjoyed to this day. Whether you have nostalgia for Disney or want to play a legitimately good, yet very easy skating game, this is a go-to. Alright, we are finally done with all that. Yes, I know there's a bunch of games I'm leaving out, there's some side ones or even some big names like this one, but you know what, it's not that big, so I'm not going to talk about it. But the whole point I'm trying to make is, the freaking skating games are huge. There are so many of them, and I'm so glad that I was actually able to just talk about the big ones that I played and the big ones in general. So yeah, that out of the way, let's now focus on the best of the best. And here I'm going to have to split it because there's two main gameplay styles, and deciding between the two, that's not going to cut it because it's all preference. So yeah, first up, let's talk about the flick it gameplay style. Skateboarding games that rely on controlling the player with the control sticks. And you know what? If we're splitting hairs here, Top Skater and Ollie King definitely fit this criteria. I mean, think of the board as one huge control stick. But no, there's only one series that can take the W here. And that's of course Skate. But which one? Like I said, the debate of whether 2 or 3 is the best is going to last till the end of time. The way I've come to understand it is that if you're a skater in real life, you prefer 2. But if you're mainly a gamer, you prefer 3. Yeah, no, those rules don't apply to me. I mean, I kind of love them both equally for different reasons, and I suck at skating, so no. Skate 2's controls are perfect. If you mess it up, it's on you. The learning curve feels rewarding, and by the end, you truly feel like you earned your way to the top. On the Skate 3 side, there's just so much more to do. Gameplay feels very hand-holdy, but as a game to just throw on for a quick session, this is the one to reach for. Yeah, I can't decide. I mean, it's kind of a tie in my eyes. So you know what? Screw it. Instead, I want to highlight another series. Not a hidden gem per se, but a series, at least a newer series, that definitely deserves the spotlight here. 2D skating games have recently made a rise in popularity. Now, 2D skateboarding is obviously nothing new, and was the prominent gameplay style in the handheld ports of many of the aforementioned series. But they were always the downgrade, just a quick way for publishers to get the name Tony Hawk on every platform possible. They were basic, but still fun times. So imagine everyone's surprise when in 2014, that gameplay style came back in a big way with Ollie Ollie. Indie developer Roll7 latched onto the basic gameplay style and married it beautifully with the now popular mobile phone gameplay style, the runner game. You, the player, start on the left side of the screen, and your goal is to make it to the end of the course to the right. Seems simple enough. You bust as many tricks as you can, grind every rail in your path, try to get the highest score possible. Only thing is, if you beef it once, you go back to the beginning of the level. Yep, this is pretty much it. Basic as hell, but god damn it if this isn't addictive. The definition of easy to pick up and play, but very hard to master, thanks to the superb level design. It got rave reviews, and of course has led to an immediate sequel in 2015. Ollie Ollie 2, welcome to Ollywood. More of the same, and this is exactly what gamers wanted. The amount of tricks you can pull off was increased, even longer combos possible, and the foolproof level design was back. Don't fix what ain't broken. More content was the main draw of the sequel, but could there be more done with this formula? You know, updated. Well, let's look at the third game and find out. 2022's Ollie Ollie World is exactly what it sounds like. Ollie Ollie, but with a fully fleshed out world thanks to an interesting story mode. Now the stage select resembling Super Mario World, the third installment puts you in a skate paradise, Radlandia. Here you can create a skater, and it's your destiny to bring peace to the world through mastering the tricks of the skate gods. Oh wait, I just realized I haven't even talked about how to play these games. Well, I am highlighting flick style controls here. So most of these tricks are done using the thumbsticks. The left thumbstick is used for everything from ollieing to flip tricks to even grinding by holding the stick in any direction on a rail, while the right thumbstick is for grab tricks. The X button also plays a part in performing manuals to form combos and even stomping the landing, making the final trick perfect. Now this is a bit of a change from the previous games. Pressing X after landing on Asphalt was required to make it a perfect landing. Missing this cue would lead to either an okay landing or a sloppy landing, making you lose speed and lose points. But in Ollie Ollie World, it's no longer required to get a perfect landing. I mean, you can still click X to perfect the landing, but if you don't press it, you are no longer penalized with losing speed. This change definitely makes this a much more user-friendly experience, but just because they made it easier for the pick up and play crowd does not mean that the perfectionists aren't going to get a kick out of this package. Ollie Ollie is a phenomenal series, no matter which game you decide to play. I've barely touched one outside of this video, but in regards of Ollie Ollie 2, yeah, that was my poison for a while. And Ollie Ollie World is something I look forward to devouring even more in the future because of all the bonus content they've already released since launch. If you like skating games and want something different from the typical Birdman title, this might be up your alley. Just be careful. If you're the kind that likes to 100% games, this will make you want to tear your hair out. It's never unfair, just very challenging. But yeah, getting back to the main point of this section of the video, which of these is the best? World. Easily. I mean, it added far more to the formula of the previous games, and it still retains the level of challenge from 2 without losing anything in the process. Ollie Ollie World is a superb skating game, and one of the best to come out this decade for sure. It's earned its keep, and belongs up there with the likes of Skate 2 and 3 as flick style essentials. And now finally, we're down to the main event. What is the best arcade style skateboarding game? And yeah, no shit, it's Tony Hawk, but which one? Christ, it's a lot of games. All right, you know what? I'm gonna use my 50-50. How about phone a friend?
Tony Hawk 1!
No, I get nostalgia, but quantifiably and quality-wise, this isn't a series where the original is the best. No. Neversoft thankfully built up the original in every imaginable way possible. So with that, let's just get to the top contenders. Part 2, Part 3, Part 4, Thug 1, and American Wasteland. Alright, Part 3 is a better version of 2 in regards of classic Tony Hawk. Look, I get it. I grew up with 2 also, but no nostalgia. Thug 1 is better than 4 in the style of the adventure games that Tony Hawk eventually evolved into. 4 feels more like a middle ground between 3 and Thug 1, with its open world mechanics, but ultimately it's not as good as either. In American Wasteland, look, I completely understand the love for this game. It was the last amazing Tony Hawk game before the bad times. But it's way too easy. The open world is just a bunch of levels connected with load tunnels, giving the illusion of an open one. And yet, despite it being good to go back to nowadays, as a whole, the formula definitely feels stale this late in the game. Still one of the best, but not the best. So yeah, now I have to decide between Tony Hawk 3 and Underground 1. Alright, here we go. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1+2.
Cheat, man. Son of a bitch, cheating, man!
Look, there's no way in hell I'm going to appease everybody here, so yeah, as technology has advanced and being a great return to form, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1+2 is quantifiably the best game in the series. If you love the surprisingly engaging story of Thug 1, yeah, you're shit out of luck. But in every other aspect, 1+2 has it in spades. Updated controls, great modern day graphics, every level from the original 1 and 2, the revert system of 3, the classic local multiplayer modes, which are also fully playable online, the cheat menu of yesteryear, a bit neutered but still fun to mess around with, the iconic soundtrack of 1 and 2, plus some new tracks, and of course a phenomenal park editor. All in all, this is one of the best skating games bar none. And it's just so much fun to play. The controls are perfect, combos are still fun as ever, and the right amount of nostalgia is poured on. But ultimately, it shows this formula still works, and there is room for this series to grow and come back. Don't just shovel out a new title every year. That was the problem. Put love and care into each title and you can make new games with heart, just like the old days. If you still aren't convinced, sure, go ahead throw your insults my way for choosing the safe choice. But come on, there is a reason why people were hyped as hell when this came out. That, and skateboarding making its debut in the 2021 Summer Olympics, was the perfect storm to get people re-interested in skateboarding, and inspire a new younger generation to take up the sport. Yeah, Tony Hawk 3 and Thug 1 are my favorites too, for the classic style and open world style respectively. So they all share the top 3 podium. But for gameplay alone, I gotta go with the new school, which in reality is just an amalgamation of everything great about this series. It's a mutt, and just like real mutts, they are the best to have. Well, that's the video. And yeah, skating games, man. I mean, just looking back at my childhood, just coming home from school, popping in the new Tony Hawk or, a freaking skate game and just zoning out, just doing some crazy ass freaking combo, some flip tricks, some freaking grinds. But it's stuff that I could never ever in a million years do in real life because I suck at skating, and also some of those things are just impossible to do. But it's just cool to do it in game, and it just makes you feel just so awesome. I mean, this whole subgenre, it's not just that, near and dear to my heart, but it's an essential for just gaming in general. Doesn't matter how old you are, a freaking kid or a grandparent, if you give them this game, any one of the games that I've talked about, well, and the good ones, they're gonna love it. Skateboarding games is a subgenre that is just big for a reason, because it's just fun, quick, pick up and play style gameplay. Yes, even the flick it style, those are just fun to get the hang of. They're phenomenal. And this subgenre is quintessential to anyone's gaming library. So yeah, that out of the way. Usually by this point, they'll talk about, look to the future of the subgenre, see what they do next. But Skater XL's dead. Session Skate looks cool, like the whole, Ninja Turtles freaking DLC. But Skate 4, I have not played it. I know the betas, some testing's been out there. I've heard good things, but I don't know anything about it, so I can't give an opinion. But you know what I can give an opinion on, or at least I will, is the fact that there's actually another format where skating games are starting to, come into play. And that is the VR space. So yeah, we'll check that out right now. But yeah, regardless, that's the video. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys later. All right, let's check this out. Wow, this is realistic. Wait, this isn't Skate VR. Oh, where's shit?
Nah, fam, we only getting started. Yeah, I got the light. He got the light. We got the light. What you know about it? So much light. More light. power bill. Or a match when it strike, we devour ill. They don't know how to feel. Their minds cripple.